Welcome to the Heartification podcast, where I interview people on how art has affected their lives and what it means to them. Art has a very special place in my life. It not only makes me feel happy, but it allows me to make others feel special. This podcast is all about how art has made an impact on others' lives, for all ages, all backgrounds, and all walks of life. You can find more about this podcast guest in my show notes. Without further ado, let's welcome my next guest. She is an author, social media correspondent, entrepreneur, TV expert, fitness trainer, and brand mentor. Please welcome my next guest, Jennifer Ettinger.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for being on my podcast. So the first question I always ask is, how do you define art?
I believe that art is a form of expression that we all have to evoke emotion in ourselves and also in others.
Yeah, definitely. Like, that's almost my exact definition. Anyway, you're able to express yourself, take yourself and what you're feeling and put it out onto the dance floor. If your form of expression is dance, onto the canvas or into your cooking. So I totally agree with you.
Well said.
And what art forms are you exposed to?
So something you don't know about me, and a lot of people don't know, is my father is an international artist.
Oh,
so
wow.
When you invited me to the podcast, it really spoke to my heart for many reasons. So as a child, I grew up in museums and galleries for my father's shows. So art that I've been exposed to, I also went to the Fashion Institute of Technology in New York City for visual merchandising and art. So art for me, I've grown up with being in museums, being in galleries, going to Broadway plays, seeing the Nutcracker, various ballets, or modern dance, or watching street performers in the streets of New York, creative writing, author reads. So I'm very fortunate that I've come from an artistic family that really embrace all forms of art.
Yeah, that's awesome. And how do you use creativity in what you do?
I am very fortunate that with the various hats that I wear, creativity is at the form of all that I do. So whether I'm working on a social media campaign for a client, I have the beautiful opportunity of creating for them. So I literally start with a blank screen or a blank piece of paper, and I'm able to create an identity or a brand or a conversation or create a movement for my clients and brands. So it's truly an honor to be able to take something from nothing and to create some beautiful substance around it. In addition to that, I journal, I write, I move and movement. So I am very fortunate that in my day-to-day life, everything is varied. So just right before you, I was moving with a client to writing campaigns. So it's always varies.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think it's really important to be creative in any industry because people want to look at your product or your service and think, wow, that's different from all the others. I want to invest in that.
Well said. Again, exactly. We're totally aligned. I love it.
Awesome. And do you see social media as an art form, and why?
I do. And I thought that was such a great question of yours, because I believe in this digital world, many of us use our social media as our digital diaries. So in the old days, we used to have paper locked journals, diaries with little hearts and little locks that came on it. So we could write I still have mine. We could write our thoughts and emotions and what was happening in our day-to-day lives. And now what we've been able to do in this digital world is transpose that into our social media. So whether it's our favorite food dish or being with one that we love or being in nature, whatever it is, we're now able to express ourselves through our platforms. And I hope, if I may, as a strategist, that we do that from a positive manner.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree. And do you think that people are able to express themselves on social media?
Absolutely. I think it's a beautiful forum. And I guess what I always share with my clients is try to step into your power of truth and transparency. So when you're in that space of honoring yourself and your whole self and your creative self, people really will resonate to your social because vibes don't lie. You can feel vibes. We already know right now we're feeling aligned. Am I right?
Yeah,
Right?
totally.
So vibes don't lie. And so when we step into our power of truth and our creative selves and we allow others to see that, it's beautiful how tribes are created.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's important to be true to yourself and not put on a mask for everyone else and connect with your followers or your clients. I think that's really important when you're doing anything.
I agree. Well said.
And do you think, or do you consider fitness to be an art, and
Abs-
why?
Absolutely. So I fell into fitness because of being ill, bedridden, many, many years ago. And movement changed my life, not only my mental health, but also my physical well being, and created a career for myself 18 years ago from being bedridden 18 years ago. And it's a beautiful form, like you talked about dance. It's a form of expression. And so we're able to pump ourselves with beautiful oxygen and get the fluid moving. And what a gift to be able to honor our own bodies of work of art and to be able to use that space and flow of energy for the betterment of our own selves.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree. And, when you look at art, you think of art, you first think of, like paintings and dance and sculptures. But if you actually think about it, like everything around us is art. The computer I'm looking on is an art, someone designed it. The basement I'm sitting in is an art, someone designed it. Fitness is an art. Everything is an art. And I found that really cool how we're surrounded by art and people say, "Oh, I'm not artistic and I'm not creative." But you are. You just don't think that you are because you think art is only painting and dance, but it's actually everything.
It is everything. And I know we might talk about this, but it's a perfect time for me to share this, that with my father being an artist, when we would be in the streets, my father would stop. And if he saw a headlight of a car, a rusted old headlight at the side of the street, he would pick it up and he would think, I'm going to take this home. And he would create beautiful airbrush. He started way back when in his different mediums that he had, but at one point it was airbrush. And he would create that headlight to become a beautiful moon. And
Wow.
so he taught me, and there's actually a documentary, which I'll share with you about him, called The Beauty of Damage. And that many of us, you are very attuned when you see everything around you that is artistic, that someone has created it for us. We're aligned with all that creative energy. My father taught me that things that are neglected have beauty, and to really stop and be present and aware that everything around you could have a beautiful purpose if you allow it to.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's amazing. And how were art and creativity a part of you getting back up on your feet after you were diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome?
I think really that was the physical movement component, and also journaling. So journaling became an art form for me in terms of releasing my emotions into journals, and then becoming a certified trainer and understanding movement and how that could ground me. And so that journey of using those tools really was the foundation of Fit Your Style being born 18 years ago, my first company. I have two.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, and I think people, when they're at their lowest self, I think that's when they turn to these forms of art to pass time.
Yes.
Journaling and painting. And I've talked to some of my other interviewees who have been sick and diagnosed with different diseases, and they've all said that they picked up, painting or journaling to help cope, I guess, which I think is amazing. And, even just journaling is an art form, just, sitting down after a long day, which I think is good, and it just expressing your emotions. And, you could have a good day or a bad day, but you can just put that all into a journal, or even painting or dance. But I think journaling, just sitting down and just having like a calm space, is something that people should do every day.
And what people may or may not know is that when you journal pen to paper or pencil to paper, you're actually using different neurotransmitters in your brain to help increase the serotonin levels. So it works differently than when we type on a computer. It's a different secretion. It's a different form of the brain use. So there's
Right.
power in that pencil to paper, that you're right. If people could utilize that, it really is a great mental health tool as well.
Yeah, it is. And I see writing as an art form. So do you feel you were able to express yourself while writing your book?
Yes, it was such an incredible honor. I think it's time for a reboot for my book. But again, it was beautiful because my My undergrad is in visual styling. So what that means is I was trained to do the window displays. I did them in New York City. And then my bachelor's is in restoration museum studies. And then I have a master's in museum studies. So I have various tiers of art in terms of that. And all of those modalities have allowed me to, express that art form in different capacities.
Wow, yeah, that's awesome. And you have a quote, a female body is like a blank canvas waiting to be adorned, captivating the spirit of the individual, learning her highlights and contrasts, allowing her unique beauty to surface to the forefront of her own masterpiece. Long quote. But can you explain what that means?
Yes. So back to the book part of the creativity and that educational piece that I just shared, all of that was able to be transposed into the book along with my personal journey of being bedridden. So it was like my own masterpiece, whether it was successful or not, it was my own internal masterpiece of being bedridden and all of these different modalities of my education and putting them into a book to serve others. And that quote to me is that the human body is the ultimate canvas, and that we do have many women and men are hard on themselves. They're hard on their body shape and their body images. But if we can get past that, if we can really ground ourselves and see that our uniqueness is our masterpiece, that we have highlights by our unique nose shape, and we have highlights by our eyes, and contrast by our curves, and that to be able to honor and serve that, you come from such a beautiful space that life looks different.
Yeah, definitely. And, even like on social media, there's always hate about someone's body and how they look. And, at times sometimes it's not a positive environment. And, I think that's terrible. Like it should be a positive environment where everyone's, like hyping each other up. They're all good vibes and no one's like giving hate to people for absolutely no reason. They don't know the person, never seen them, never talked to them. And they just make some random comment about how they look when they have no idea what they've been through.
And that's harsh, isn't it? It's really hard. And you're right. People just assume, which is a very dangerous thing to do. And they think that they have a right on social to say what they want to say. And my answer for that is, I hope that the world would look at social media as if the two of us were sitting down at a dinner table, and that we would have proper etiquette with how we would eat in our conversation, that we could take that etiquette and utilize it on social and show more respect.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree. And, people are always talking about how not 100% of people's lives are on social media. So you have no idea you may see a picture, but you have no idea what they're actually, going through. It's just a sliver of their life that you see, and you're judging that tiny little piece of their life.
Absolutely. And again, you've hit the nail on the head in terms of that one, that bang on, that people have to understand. We control as our own curators of our digital diary what we allow people to see. And very few of us share that vulnerable side or the sad side. And that's okay. Everybody needs to have their boundaries, but just to show respect of where people are at.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree. And art can be therapeutic and it can help people through difficult situations. So has art ever helped you through a difficult situation?
Sure. I'd say my chronic fatigue, COVID, absolutely. I got my paint by numbers. I had my positivity stones I'm painting. I did acrylics. I did adult coloring books. So you name it, I've tried it over COVID.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think art can be a real good way to cope through this pandemic. Like as we were saying before, it's a really good way to pass the time, and you can also express yourself and let out your feelings. There's been days where me and my sister have just had like a little paint afternoon with me and her, and we'd like find a picture online and just paint together. And it's so happy because we get to spend time together, but we're also doing painting, which
I love it.
yeah,
you're bonding and you're creating at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. And are you attracted to any particular artist?
Well, I would have to say my father.
Yeah, obvious reasons.
But also in that, I had the fortunate of training at museums. So I trained at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City. I've trained at the Cleveland Museum of Art. And I've had the privilege of walking the corridors when they're not open.
Wow.
And I have to tell you, it's the most beautiful and spiritual experience. So to answer that, I'm in love with all art forms. My degree is in museum studies of 18th and 19th century decorative art. So I trained with beautiful porcelain and furniture from the 18th and 19th century as a curator, and also working in the auction business for Sotheby's. And then I'm trying to think what else that I really, really love. I love Monet and Renoir, but again, I just love getting lost in a museum and just seeing where the corridor takes me and immersing myself in what's in front of me.
Yeah, that's awesome. And are you attracted to any particular art form?
I love all art forms. And I think that's what as an entrepreneur, I have the privilege of working in so many different modalities. So no, I love them all and I embrace them all for sure. Oh,
Yeah.
except I do find singing obviously to me is an art form, but I can't sing. So let's just say I'll leave that one on the table.
Yeah, same. Like I love all art forms and I appreciate them all. I paint, but I love all art forms,
Yes.
Yeah, and you
That's
don't have to
great.
you don't have to be good at one art form to love it and appreciate it. You don't have to be good at painting to appreciate art or singing to appreciate singing and enjoy listening to songs or hearing other people sing.
I sing in the car, I sing in the shower, and I'm my own Beyonce.
Yeah, definitely.
Right?
Yeah.
I just know my boundaries.
Yeah. And my Heartification project is all about giving back to the community. So how do you give back to the community?
I just love this about you and all that you're doing. I just think it needs to be commended. So congratulations for all that you're doing. I'm going to answer that in a couple of different ways. When I was coming up and as a trainer, my mentor, the very first thing she shared with me, her name is Nikki Anderson of Chicago. And she shared, Jennifer, if you get involved with your community, your reputation will always be known by how you serve others. So even if there's this going on, which can happen as you become, you come up in your world, it's the community and the service part that will speak to other souls. And that really stuck to me. And my favorite quote is, the more you give, the more you receive. The more you receive, the more you give. So community has always been at the foundation of all that I do. So recently, I was just in a positivity COVID video with York Region council people and mayors talking about what we did over COVID to evoke positivity. I was in a shop local program to cultivate our community to get out and shop local and feel safe and comfortable. I work with the National Pediatric Cancer Foundation as a moderator host to really help and lift the children with illness. I work with another consciously global company of feeding children worldwide. The list goes on because I believe we have a responsibility of giving back. And so I really have to say, my hat comes off to you, my pink hat comes off to you with all the great work that you're doing.
Thank you. And, I think it's important, like, as we were talking about before, to connect with the community around you. And if people connect with you, they'll be more willing to buy your product or use your service or whatever it is you're doing, which goes back to you need to be true to yourself and, connect with the community and not just have a closed door and say, oh, buy my product.
Yes, exactly. Because trust has been established and they also see that you're a person of service, and that speaks volumes. When it's true, again, kind of the top of the hour when we talked about vibes don't lie, people know when you're coming from a place of service and that you are authentic and you truly mean and what you're putting out in the world, then people tend to want to, hopefully, they attract that vibe from you and they'll want to purchase from you and build a relationship with you.
Yeah, definitely. And how would you like people to get in touch with you?
So I'm known as Fit Your Style on Instagram. On Facebook, it's Jennifer Ettinger at Fit Your Style, and Twitter is at Fit Your Style.
Awesome. Yeah, well, thank you so much for doing this interview.
You were so welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. Remember, if you want to find out more about this guest, please go to my show notes where I have all the links needed. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe to my podcast series and help me by sharing it, leaving a rating, and a comment. I hope you join me on my next podcast. Bye for now.